Hey everybody, welcome back or welcome to the Science of Gaming series brought to you by AimLab. I'm Taylor Johnson, and in this episode we speak with Ethan Arnold. He's a professional Counter-Strike player with Evil Geniuses, and we talk about his path to pro, ways he stayed on top of his game, some lessons learned over the course of his career from the wins and losses, and finding his own routine and rhythms for success. If you dig these videos, like them, subscribe to our channel, and also check out our other social media on Twitter and Instagram. We hope you enjoy. Ethan, it's great to have you on.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So I want to first start off and ask you, how long have you been a professional gamer, and also what did that path to pro look like for you?
Yeah, so I think now I'm probably on 4 years, maybe five, something like that. But yeah, I've probably been playing for around like 6 or 7 years. Just like I think I played for like 2 years, just kind of loosely, casually of CS before. But yeah, it was I just played for fun with friends, and then probably like the year before I went pro, I actually started like thinking I was pretty good, and I actually tried to become a pro and like get picked up by a pro team. So up until then, yeah, I was just casual friends.
Awesome. And so now you're currently with Evil Genius.
Yep.
Awesome. And so when you had that moment where you're like, man, I'm actually pretty good at this, I want to go pro, like what changed for you in terms of your approach to your practice, your training, and then also how are you putting yourself out there to get noticed by teams?
Yeah, so it started. So there's like different divisions in CS, or there used to be. It was like ESEA, and so there was like five different divisions. Open being like the beginner version, where like everyone could play for like $5 or something. And so I think I was like on the best open team, or had like the best open stats, or something like that. And then I got picked up by a semi-pro team, and so I played with my friends there for like maybe like 2 seasons, and then from there I got picked up by a pro team. So it was all really fast when I actually started like trying to get pretty good. So
Awesome. So then during that transition, did anything change in terms of how you're going about handling business in terms of your practice, your warm-ups, when you made that point of being like, okay, yeah, like this is what I want to go for? Did anything change for you, or was it just business as usual?
yeah, so on that semi-pro team that I was talking about, we would practice after school up until like midnight. So that kind of eased me into the actual like teams practicing kind of thing. So that got me used to whenever I joined the pro team, we would actually have a set schedule. So I kind of knew what was going on and I was ready for it. But yeah, that helps me for sure.
Awesome. So it sounds like the biggest thing was just changing your schedule to
Mm.
reflect more of what that professional setting would look like, so more around structure, systems, and scheduling.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot just because I was still in school back then. So staying up till like midnight and waking up the next morning to go to school was pretty hard. But
That's tough.
I
That's a big
yeah,
workload.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed practicing and playing. So yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So in your opinion, like what does it take to become a pro gamer?
Definitely nowadays, definitely a lot of dedication. Um, I think it's a lot harder to get on a pro team than it was back then. Like back then, I don't want to say like I wasn't trying my best, but I really didn't think I wasn't like actively trying at that point to get on a pro team. They kind of reached out. I was like, oh, okay. So, but now you definitely it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. Um, Definitely isn't for everybody.
Right. So let's unpack that a little bit more. So, when you talk about the hard work and dedication, like what does that look like? So for a casual gamer or somebody who
Mm.
wants to become an aspiring pro or professional player, like what are some of those things that you would call out that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so nowadays you definitely have to climb through the ranks, kinda. So you have to really go through the leagues and get to that point where you do get noticed, and then at that point you kind of have to make a good impression on the actual pros because those are the guys that are actually picking you up. So, make sure you're a good teammate, good communication, stuff like that. Just have a good impression on them for sure.
Awesome. So I'm really curious about your own practice, right? So
Mhm.
how do you go about refining your own skill when it comes to mechanical skill, your game knowledge, your game sense, your own teamwork, communications, and then your decision making in game? So can you kind of give us an idea of,
Mhm.
what that looks like on a day to day, or do you kind of plan that out, or is it just kind of come and go?
Yeah, so individually, aside from team practice, usually I'll just do my usual warm-up stuff, which is just like it'll probably be like just before practice, it'll be like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of just like mechanical, just like practicing aim and stuff like that. But before match days, I'll go on like an hour, 2 hours before and double down on that. So, um, yeah, I think right now, just because we're all playing online, it's a lot of just making sure you stay consistent because we all have time now. We're not traveling. So I definitely have the time to kind of make sure I'm honed in on all that stuff.
Cool. So it sounds like on the game days, you add on a little extra on the front end of the warm up, because I would
Mm.
imagine there's a difference between warming up to, you know, for practice and then warming up to feel good for game day.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely, I mean, I try to make sure most of the stuff I do before practice is the same stuff I'll do before matches just to be consistent.
Yep.
But I think I just want to extra make sure that I'm ready before matches. So I just do it longer, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Ethan, what do you think are like some of the most challenging things about being a professional player?
Uh, Back when we were traveling, definitely the traveling. That was a big part. I think we were gone for like close to 300 out of the 365 days last year. So that was a lot of traveling and a lot of work. It definitely got to some of us. We were ready to take a break, so we really enjoyed the player break. We're really ready now, really, really hungry to win. So, um, other than that, when you're a good team and you have to travel a lot, that means less practice, and less practice leads to, in our case, worse results. So towards the end of last year, we started kind of picking and choosing the events we went to make sure we did get in that practice time, so it didn't happen again, which I think ended pretty well. So we kind of figured out the little formula towards the end there, but yeah, definitely the travel.
Yeah, because I would imagine, I mean, and you and I had spoken too. I mean, you were all over the place,
Yeah,
different countries, different time zones. It becomes very challenging. And so I think at that point, the time management, of your own personal stuff that you're handling as well as a team becomes very important.
yeah, for sure.
Cool. So, um, I guess like over the course of your career, if you could think about maybe a story of one of the biggest lessons that you've learned and kind of tell that story, and then what was the insight from that, and then maybe what did you pull from that and then use moving forward to really help enhance and level up your game moving forward.
Yeah, I've been with the same core teammates, us three, for probably like close to 3 years now. So I've learned that it is a team game, but if you're not at your peak performance at all times, then you could easily just lose your team the game. I think everyone on our team knows this, that we all need to be at our peak performance at all times to be able to win the championships. And we know that because we have won the championships and everyone was on point. So yeah, definitely just making sure we're all on the same page and that we're all doing our best to compete for sure.
So can you think of a specific instance where maybe you're like, wow, like that, me myself not being at my peak performance impacted the
Mhm.
collective team or like as a whole, and then maybe what was something that you then did moving forward so that you could correct that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say any losses where anyone did bad. We've all been there. So any losses where someone didn't perform, I'm sure they felt that way. And then any wins where everyone performed, I'm sure we saw both sides. So we know what happens when we don't perform, and we know what happens when we do, and we learn from those. And now that's what gives us motivation, seeing that actual success come from it.
Awesome. And then does
Yeah.
anything stand out particularly, like one of the, like if you look back on your career, what might be one of the biggest lessons you've taken from all of your play?
Um. Yeah. So probably I think it was September of last year when we won New York. ESL New York, that was definitely, I think that's the hardest we've ever worked in our careers, probably up until that point. and we just got picked up by a new organization, Evil Geniuses, where we are now. So we were all super motivated, we got that little kick of energy, and then we kind of just went out and did our thing. So I think that's definitely my biggest memory for sure.
Right. And so I imagine, having the team being together for that long and then getting picked up and having an opportunity that presented itself. I mean, there's probably a lot of excitement. There's probably maybe even a little bit of fear, maybe not. But
Mm.
can you kind of talk through, like, as a team, when you guys got picked up, like, what was the overall mindset moving forward as a group?
Yeah, it was just a lot of motivation, I feel like. We heard a lot of great things about EG. They've just been in NA, they've been just legendary. They're like 10 years, more than 10 years. So that plus going into a North American LAN and actually having like our families and people from the organization come for the first tournament, that was just like a huge boost of confidence for us. So that was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about CSGO specifically, like, what might be some key advice you can give players to really level up their game?
I think yeah, people ask me this a lot, and usually what I'll just say is communication at the start. Um, Communication is just it helps everybody. It helps your teammates. It helps you. Um, so that's just the main thing. I think if you're just starting out, like brand new, the mechanical skill is very important. It's the key. It's the key to CS. So, um, yeah, if you can master that or at least get really good at that, then I think you'll kind of be above everyone else at that point.
Awesome. Yeah. So if we could talk a little bit more about the communication, because I think a lot of the mechanical skill, that's just a lot of practice, right? But
Yeah.
so is communication. And I find that the communication is a skill that's sometimes lacking. Like, it needs to be trained itself. So how have you gone about improving your communication skills, both individually and then collectively as a team?
Yeah, so I think just overplaying so many years, you kind of like hone your skill. It depends, but yeah, I've just played for so long on so many teams that I think now I can like say that I have pretty good communication just outside of the team. So it's just like an out of game skill too, which I think is really helpful. But as a team, that's something we've definitely worked really hard on for the last like year or two, is just communication, because that's something we lacked a lot before, and we could tell that it's like a lot of key rounds we were losing because of communication. So we started really focusing on that, and I think it's gotten to the point where we're pretty good at it, or at least getting to that point. So you can always be better, but we're always working on it for sure.
Yeah. So what I've heard in some team atmospheres, they talk about this in the military a lot too. It's like this, this hive brain, this collective where everybody's on the same page, everybody's
Yeah.
buzzing on the same energy, and you just vibe off each other.
Mm,
And the communication at that point is very minimum. It's like, what is the minimum effective communication to get across so the lines are clear?
yeah.
And it's very direct, very to the point. You have that experience quite a bit, yeah?
Yeah, that's the point that we strive for. I think when we're at our A game, that's what we're at. So we always strive to be at our A game, and I think we're after all the hard work that we've put in over like the last year, we're finally getting to that point, which is really good. Because yeah, like you said, everyone's kind of knows what's going on. It's helpful for all the players individually because they don't really have to think too much, so they can just focus on themselves, and everyone knows what's going on around them, so it helps.
Yeah, like I was talking to Soham about this, and the big thing that he talked about is, consistently reacting.
Mm,
It's just, you're basically in a state of flow and you're reacting to, it's pattern recognition. You're understanding, where you're at in the game, where you're at in the map, what are the objectives, and everybody's on that same page. And then just a matter of practice and repetition to understand, what could happen next. And then that's where that game sense starts to come into play.
yeah, for sure. That's just like the basic of pro CS. I think every team has a level of that. The best teams in the world obviously are much more kind of in tune with all their teammates and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely how you get to the top is with what you said.
Awesome. So I kind of want to jump outside of the game now, because you and I have talked a lot about health and nutrition and wellness. And so, when you're on point, what does that really look like for you, and how are you taking care of your body so that you can perform your best and peak really in game?
Yeah, I think I touched on this before, it's just consistency. So like right now, since we're not traveling, it's really easy to kind of get a schedule going, make sure you have all the stuff because I'm at home right now, so I can actually get the food that I need and not have to rely on the tournament organizers to get that food for me or have it available. Because in some countries, it's not as available as it is here in America. So, um, yeah, I think first I just make sure I have enough sleep. I think that's just the main important thing for being able to focus during any sport or any activity is making sure you have enough sleep and you're ready to go. And then when we go to tournaments and even just before matches here, I always make sure to eat a certain time and a certain amount, stuff like that before games to make sure. Because, like I said, after all these years, I've experimented with like a bunch of stuff, so I know what works and what doesn't. And so right now, I think I'm at that point where I kind of know what my body likes, what I like, and what I react well to.
Yeah, so I would imagine that would be a key insight to give a young player as well is, experiment
Mm,
and check in with yourself and see, okay, what works best and what doesn't in terms of the sleep, the nutrition, and then also with the warm-ups. Because I heard you say like you practice,
yeah.
you have your core fundamentals that you focus on, and then come game day, you layer on a little bit extra. I would imagine that that's been curated and modified over the years.
Yeah. The warm-up routine is kind of like something I just feel comfortable with, something that I think works. And so just to really make sure I don't see a downside to doing it more before a match. That's why I do it, just to make sure. Um, but yeah, I think for sure, just kind of find everyone's different, so find your preferred thing. If you think it works, you have time to test it out. So it's always good to try new things, make sure you know what works.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's also a level of um, like doing your own debrief, right? Because
Mm,
you could try something and if it works, you're like, okay, great, and you take a note of that, and then maybe you try something and it doesn't work. Do you have like a not a journal per se, but do you have like a practice where you're kind of taking note of things as you go on in your career of what works, what doesn't, so it's a lot easier for you to reference?
yeah, I think it's definitely like a mental note, kind of thing. I know, yeah, I think if I try something and I feel like, oh, I felt worse than yesterday when I did this thing, I'll be like, all right, let's not do that thing again.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely, I think it's more of a mental note. I kind of just go with the flow. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, that's it.
Cool. So, if you were to give advice just on a holistic level to young players that are, maybe they just want to rank up in casual play, or maybe they want to become a pro, what might be, three key pieces of advice you'd want to give to them?
Um, yeah, so first, probably just get comfortable. I think if you're gonna play and if you want to go pro, you definitely need to make sure you got the basics down, so get comfortable with that. Second, definitely just dedication. I think now, like I said before, it just takes so much. There's so many players now, so many good players that you have to really stand out, and it takes a lot of hard work and time to stand out. So just kind of like be ready for what you need to do. And then third, I guess just be a good teammate because I think at that point you'll probably be playing with the team, whether it be casuals, like I said, or an actual like semi-pro, maybe even pro team. Um, yeah, I just be a good teammate is really important.
Awesome. Can you expand a little bit more on the second and third point? So you talked about the dedication and standing out. In your mind, like what really has you stand out and separate yourself from everybody else?
Yeah. So I guess I can use me as an example. So like rank S and FPL is like where the semi-pros kind of pug against each other and play against each other. So back then you would get picked up on teams solely how you performed in those, because that's really all you could really do. That and like your just semi-pro matches which weren't that important. So people, usually pros, played against you in those little pugs in rank S and FPL, and so they would get first-hand experience in how you played or how you were against them, with them on their team, stuff like that. So just kind of like making sure you are good, I guess, and are showing that you are worth the time and like maybe even pick up.
Awesome. And then that last part of be a good teammate. So if you were to, describe like what does it mean to be a good teammate?
Yeah. Um, so for us as a team, being able to bounce off each other, giving good ideas, receiving criticism is a really big thing for me. If you're able to receive criticism and not just instantly deflect it, that's a really big thing because it leads to learning, and learning leads to becoming better. So I think, yeah, just always striving to improve, I think is just how you be a good teammate for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine like that last part. What I'm hearing is also there's a level of maturity, right? Like you
Yeah,
need
for
to have a
sure.
certain level of maturity about yourself to understand that the feedback you're getting is for your own benefit and for the team as well.
Mm,
And that's where the lessons really, are downloaded and integrated.
yeah, for sure. I think that's one thing that I learned, like just maturing, because as like the first team I joined, I had to move out to California as at like 16. So I moved away from my family, went with these like four random people, not random to me because I was friends with them, but like to my family, it's four random teammates.
Right.
So I lived with them for like a year, and I think just from that alone, matured a lot. And then over the years, obviously traveling with different teammates, stuff like that, it helps.
Awesome. So Ethan, what are you excited about most? What's coming up for you in terms of, looking at, competitive esports as in an entirety? What are you most
Yeah.
excited about right now?
Yeah. Esports has been growing exponentially just since it started, so it's still growing right now. Obviously, the traveling kind of is holding it back a little bit, but hopefully that's over soon. And we get back to competing because that was my favorite part. Even though I said traveling was rough and hard work, I definitely enjoyed competing. Competing was always fun in front of crowds and stuff like that. So definitely, I definitely look forward to that all the time.
Yeah, and I would imagine the thrill of being in front of a crowd and playing at the highest level.
Yeah,
What's that like for you?
it's probably the best feeling, especially like when you're playing well and the crowd's cheering for you. It's a little different in Europe when you're playing European teams because they're never, I don't want to say never, but it's rare that they're rooting for you.
Right.
But I mean, just being in front of the crowd with them cheering is always awesome.
Yeah, and then so leading up to that, do you ever get nerves or anything, or if do you ever get tilted in game, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think everyone, anyone that tells you they don't get nervous is lying. I mean, you're in front of, I think the most people we played in front of was probably like 20,000 in a filled stadium. So actually, probably more than that. Number's probably off. But if you're playing in front of that many people, the game itself is already stressful enough. So adding that, adding money on top of that, adding rankings on top of that, you're always gonna get a little bit of nerves. Um, but yeah, I think right now also tilting was a big thing we've worked on. It used to be a bad habit just in our team in general for like the last like year or two, and I think we've really practiced a lot, kind of making sure with our coaches, with our like psychologist coach, um, we've definitely like looked to fix that a lot, and I think we've gotten a lot better. So that helps a lot for sure.
Awesome. Is there any tips and tricks that you yourself use on a consistent basis to like kind of notice a name when you're getting tilted?
Um, Honestly, like it's gotten to that point where we just don't even tilt anymore as a team or as like players either. So like it's just kind of natural now where if something bad happens, it's just clicked in our mind that we just move on because that's how we've kind of trained ourselves to practice right now. So I don't like I couldn't even think of an example where someone has like actually expressed their tilt towards the team
Right.
for like the last like year or something. So it's gotten to a really good point for sure.
That's awesome. And for those listening, I mean, that's definitely possible.
Yeah,
It's definitely it's a trainable skill, just like your communication, just like your mechanics, to be able to be in that zone and to first off, you notice that something happened and it's off, but to be able to, bracket and clear it. And then
yeah.
obviously I would imagine you come back afterwards and debrief it. But,
Yeah,
to dwell on it in game is just not beneficial. So it's
yeah.
awesome to hear that you guys are at that point, and I acknowledge you and your team and your staff to get to that point.
Yeah, like you said, where you like debrief and get it all out eventually, like it's definitely bad to keep it all in. It's not like you can just completely forget about it. It's always going to be in your mind. So we always review and we always point out mistakes because that's how you improve. And so if you did have an issue with something someone did or something you did, we always bring it up. And I think that's where you kind of let go. And that's how you kind of debrief yourself. So it's good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ethan, I really appreciate you coming on. Any shout outs, social media links, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I just got a Twitter. Uh, I think you'll probably link it.
Yep.
It's the underscore Nate or whatever. I haven't changed it yet. Hopefully the change is coming soon to the real name. Um, but yeah, sometimes I stream on Twitch, but not often. But that's really it.
Awesome. Well, Ethan, I really appreciate you coming on, man. I acknowledge you for, the path that you've had in your career so far, and really excited to see what you're going to continue to do. You're
Cool.
definitely one of the rising stars, and continue to improve. And really excited for you.
Thanks a lot, man. I was glad to be here.
Yep. Cheers. Hey everyone, we hope you enjoy that episode with Ethan. He's one of the rising stars in Counter Strike, and just mechanically so sound, and has a really bright future ahead of him. If you dig these videos, like it, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check out our other social media on Twitter and Instagram. We have some of the best meme game out there. We hope you enjoy all this and hope to see you back soon.